The Bible doesn't have much to say about Enoch. Genesis 5 tells us, when Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. And after he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch lived 365 years. And then it says, Enoch walked with God. Then he was no more because God took him away. Hebrews 11 gives us just a little more detail. By faith, Enoch was taken from this life, so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it's impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Now, the one thing that anyone who knows anything at all about Enoch is that unlike pretty well everyone else, he didn't die. Only Elijah had something of a similar experience. But actually, there are three other really important things that we learn from these passages about Enoch, even though even this looks a little bit as though we don't know very much about him. But look again. Firstly, Enoch had faith in God. He believed that God existed. He trusted God and trusted his own life to God. A good start. Next, Enoch walked with God, and he did so for a very long time, at least 300 years. So not only did he have faith, but he was also faithful. Now, walking is often used as a metaphor for living. So this implies that Enoch lived his life very close to the Lord. In fact, he did what Jesus told his disciples to do in John 15, to stay close to God. Now, recently I visited my friend Judy, the one who broke her femur last year, and we went for a walk. However, every 50 yards or so, I had to stop and wait for her to catch up. This was not good for companionship or conversation, but it made me think. Walking with someone implies that we keep pace with them, not rushing off ahead or lagging behind. Only then can we chat and enjoy each other's company as we walk along together. And that reminded me of an old hymn that described this relationship of walking with the Lord, the sort of relationship that Enoch obviously had. He walks with me and he talks with me along life's narrow way, and it ends up describing this as the joy that we share. So first Enoch had faith in God, then he walked with God, and finally it says he pleased God. And that must have been because of the way that he consistently walked in step with God. And that's something that St. Paul advised the Christians in Corinth, and through them us, to do, to live our lives aiming to please God. Now, in Bob Jackson's book, Higher Than the Hills, which is the life story of a Nepali pastor friend of mine, chapter 18 is entitled Another Enoch. So I want to share with you the gist of that story as an encouragement and a challenge. Singbada was an illiterate village Nepali man, and he was a witch doctor into the bargain. But then he became a Christian, and he started joining the other men of the church in their annual prayer and fasting vigil, which was held at the top of a local hill. He became a man of prayer. But then in 1997, his walk with God seemed to intensify. One day he heard a voice calling, "Singbada, pick up my cross and walk." And after that, he spent most of his time in prayer. All he wanted to do was to walk with God. And then it was time for the annual prayer vigil, during which the men stayed up the hill for several days, each night spreading themselves around the summit so they could pray aloud without disturbing each other. On the Monday night, Singbada had several dreams, including one where he saw himself being carried away peacefully into eternity. The following night, up until midnight, the other men heard him praying as usual, but not after that. In the morning, when he didn't join with the others, they went to look for him. But he was not where they'd last seen him, although some of his things were in that spot. Now the place was a gap in the rocks with some thatching grass laid over the top to create a sort of makeshift tent. What they did find was that there was a hole in the thatching grass exactly above where he'd been, big enough for a man to go through. The broken strands were all pointing upwards, as though something heavy had shot through them from below. Then, despite extensive further searching, they never found Singbada, and eventually decided that the Lord must have taken him, a conclusion confirmed by a dream that his son had had. So, what do we learn? The biblical Enoch may only have been a minor character, but he was one who had a very major experience. Singbada also, probably in most people's eyes, was only an insignificant village Christian. But the thing is that they both walked faithfully with God, and that surely is a lesson that we can all learn from.